the UN estimates that more than 10,000 people have been killed over the past 16 months of carnage. But there's another side to the reality of Syria. One of the Syrian elite, largely unseen by the outside world. But Newsweek is taking a revealing look, and what its reporter finds behind this backdrop of violence and protests against President Bashar al-Assad is simply stunning. That reporter is Janine di Giovanni. Janine, you spent a good amount of time there, and you were able to explore the lives of what turned out to be Syria's elite. While you had that backdrop of violence, they were kind of going about their business per usual. Describe what you saw, and under what circumstances did you see this?
Well, I first have to point out that this is a very small portion of the population, and I think in any regime like Assad's or like Saddam before he fell, you always will find a certain sector that have money, that have the ability to party, in a sense, while the country is collapsing. And there's also a sense of delusion that this isn't going to happen to them. I think that for many people in Syria right now, there's a great fear. More than anything, there's a fear of what will happen. And so even while this elite continued or tried to continue with their lives, most of them are questioning what will come after this. If Assad does go, when he does go, what will become of us? Will we have to go into exile? Will we have to flee? Will we have to move to Lebanon, to Paris? And also, what will come next?
In fact, you write, one person you interview said, I don't necessarily agree 100% with Bashar al-Assad, but I don't believe now is the time for change.
Definitely. I think that one of the things I wanted to do by accomplishing going on the Assad side, in fact, I had a government visa, which is a very rare thing to get. I wanted to try to get into the heads of the pro-Assad supporters. What do they feel? What are they thinking? Do they believe that massacres are happening? What happened in Al-Hula? How do they view it? How do they view him as a leader? And you have to remember that this is a country that is monitored heavily by the Mukhabarat, the secret police, that people's emails are monitored, they're followed, the secret police are everywhere. So people live in a state of fear. And I think that the people I spoke to, which range from Christian nuns to musicians to playwrights to writers, all seem to have a fear of, if the opposition wins, will there be a radical fundamentalist change? Now, this is not completely accurate, but many of them say Saudi and Qatar are backing the opposition.
So they weren't necessarily government supporters, meaning they don't necessarily work for the government, they don't have special interests in the government, but they, are private enterprise, they're independent workers.
Businessmen, people that have made money and live an extravagant or even just a wealthy life, and they're wondering what will happen to them. And they've done well in some ways under the Assad regime. And if a new regime comes in, or whoever does come in, they're worried about what will happen to their lives.
You write a couple of things.
Most people are worried what will happen to them in an ordinary way, to their children, how they'll continue to educate people.
Well, you write of a couple things. You say that, they see Assad as a real guarantor of stability. And you also write that, quote, there's a deep sense of dread kept at bay by distraction and perhaps even delusion. So is it an issue of delusion or denial, or is this kind of like a survival mechanism for some who say, who actually said to you, one gentleman or one woman actually saying to you, we can either choose to live or we can choose to live in fear?
Well, Frederica, I've covered many wars and have been in situations just before wars break out. And what I've observed is that people try to survive whatever way they can. And some people pick up their passports, their children, and they flee. They take their money out of the bank if it's not too late already, and they go. And there are other people who do not believe that this could happen to their country. And I interviewed many people who said, intelligent people, educated people, who did not believe that Assad was killing his own people, that Al-Hula was not committed by government troops. So I think that in a way, many people do live in delusion, but most of it is backed up by fear, a fear of change, a fear of what could happen, and most of all, a fear of the unknown.
Well, it is a fascinating read, Janine di Giovanni. Thanks so much for your time. And of course, you can read more of Janine's reporting on Syria's elite in Newsweek's July 16th edition.